So what's your feeling about the world? What's the state of the world tourism
Oh, well, I think
post-COVID?
tourism is bouncing back. It's the fastest growing of all the industries since COVID. And it is going to continue to grow. The impact of the recession will definitely reduce the rate of growth. Certainly from Asia, where the recession is going to be more seen, more visible, and more felt. But certainly in the West, North America, UK, elements of Europe, we are going to see continued growth because there is a pent-up demand,
Absolutely,
which is still not fully released, and the airlines and everybody are still having difficulty with supply chain issues. So the meeting of that demand is going to be, elongated. So we are not likely to see a significant fallout from tourism growth coming out of COVID. We certainly will take a longer time to get back to 2019 levels.
Yes, sir.
But we certainly will see a level of increment.
You are obviously one of the known figures worldwide, internationally for tourism, and you have played a key role in making Jamaica one of the top tourist destinations in the world. What can Africa, cities and states learn from what you have been able to accomplish for Jamaica?
It's a very interesting question because on the 17th of February, 15th, 16th, 17th of February, we're going to be having the first ever Africa-Caribbean tourism convergence. And so ministers from Africa, tourism ministers, airlines, are going to be in Jamaica. Also, we're expecting the chairman of the Africa Exim Bank to make a presentation, since they've just earmarked $1.5 billion for investment in the Caribbean, and looking at how both the Caribbean and Africa can now collaborate to drive tourism. We think that we are the diaspora of Africa, and therefore it's an opportunity for what we call the reverse diaspora, where we who have grown tourism, and we are experts really in tourism in this side of the world, can offer to Africa a benefit in this regard. So it's a very exciting moment, and it's good that you asked the question, even you didn't know, but it is true, we are making the steps to build the relationship and to enable Africa to benefit from the expertise and skills and experience of its diaspora here in the Americas.
Thank you, sir.
Hello and good day again. My name is Juergen Steinmetz. We're back now, and we're going to be talking about a very interesting subject. It's about matching airline status. I know many of you are familiar with the different tiers in the airline aviation industry, and also in the accommodation industry, Marriott, where it's Marriott Gold Member or Bonvoy, or whether it's United Airlines Plus program or American Airlines. And we have Mark here. He's joining us actually from Malaysia. Mark is originally, he told me, from Brisbane, Australia. And he's working on a system that allows people to get a premium status, I guess, in an airline that they may have never flown this airline, but they get the status in anticipation of creating good business for this airline. Mark, welcome, and tell us a little bit more who you are and who you represent and what you do.
Thanks, Juergen. It's great to be here. You explained it pretty well, actually. We see ourselves as a brand introduction tool for high value premium travelers, right? So premium travelers that normally, you're in a loyalty program, you've got your gold, your platinum, whatever status, and you're pretty stuck on that brand, right? Because, you have to be to get that status, right? You can't really go shopping around every time you fly. You tend to fly with one airline or stay with one brand. And what that means is, in our eyes, you may be missing out on some of the other things out there. So we help you get status with another airline. It's called a StatusMatch, where we sort of sit in the middle between you and the airline or hotel, and we try and get you an equivalent for example, if you're gold status with one airline, we try and get your gold status with another airline straight off the bat. So you don't have to work your way from the bottom up again. You just, here it is. Now, please come and try our other airline, right? And so now for the first time in your life, this is the brand introduction part. For the first time in your life, you're taking this other airline seriously. You're like, well, I've never thought about flying, I'm making it up, Frontier Airlines before, but now I've got status with them. I'm going to give it a shot.
It's and the status, where does it start? I can tell you from my own experience, I travel a lot, and a lot of our readers know because they see me everywhere in the world. And so I'm a 3 million mile flyer with United Airlines, for example, what gives me a 1K status for life. And there is, besides global services, there is no higher status. Global services, I guess you only get by invitation. You don't get it because you fly a lot. So I don't have to worry about my status. But when I did worry about my status, of course, you need to maintain these miles. But you also, when there is a status match, and I got several of these emails from competing carriers before, they don't match the same status. So the equivalent maybe for 1K would be, I don't know, with American Airlines, like super platinum flyer. I don't know what they call it on their end, but they always give you like 1 or 2 tiers below the highest. And then you say, okay, wait a minute, why should I try that? I have to work double as much to keep the status I have. And it's really not worth it.
Yeah, I agree. Some airlines are a bit lousy in how they want to map your tier, you know. So your example of United 1K is probably executive platinum with American Airlines. That's sort of the top ish equivalent kind of thing, apples and apples kind of. You know, the real magic is airlines that do the opposite of what you say. And we work with a bunch of airlines that have done exactly this. In fact, we encourage airlines to do this, which is actually give you something more than you can get with your current carrier, right? So let's say, for example, you're like a gold member with one airline, and that gets you lounge access, priority boarding, extra bags, that kind of stuff, right? Let's say airline B comes along and gives you platinum status. They don't just match it, they kind of match +1, right? So now you've got platinum status with airline B, right? Because you haven't flown them, you're interested, you've now got this platinum. So now the platinum benefits on airline B are actually more than what you get on your main airline, right? So when you're booking your next ticket to travel somewhere, what goes through your head is, I can fly my main airline with my gold status and get a business class lounge access when I fly coach. Or this brand new shiny platinum status I got over here, I now get first class lounge access. I get a few extra perks. I get to choose the front row of coach. I get the extra whatever it is. I earn more miles. Right. You know, there's just a few little things. And so what do you think is going to happen when you're making that decision? Do I spend $5,000 on airline A or $5,000 on airline B? You're going to go with the one that gets the most perks, right? You're at least going to try it, right?
No,
and therefore,
absolutely.
At that point, the status match has worked. It's driven incremental revenue to the airline that they would never in their life have ever seen without giving you that status match.
And airlines do that. So they're actually up the status.
Well, some do, some don't. Right. We work with a bunch of airlines. We've got this, I don't want to call it consulting. It's really a strategy piece on like, how do you maximize the most out of a status match promotion, right? And if you give people lower than what they have somewhere else, right? To your point earlier, it's less compelling, right? Because it's like, well, I'm used to boarding the aircraft first, and now I have to board after group 2 and 3, whatever it is, right? You know, I used to get 2 bags for free. Now you're offering me 1 to move my business. Hang on a sec. It's, you know, if you're gonna trade your status, you want to trade up, right? You don't trade down.
No, that's an interesting way of doing it. So would you reveal what airlines would do that, or how? I mean, obviously, the airline also has to be a fit for the consumer. You cannot just say, I'm going to match this status. Like here, like I live in the United States and Hawaii, and I know we have a lot of flights on Hawaiian Airlines, on United Airlines, on Delta, and on American Airlines. But Frontier, for example, you mentioned, doesn't fly here. Alaska Airlines, we have a few flights. So how would you match the airlines with your is your client the consumer? I don't know who your client is eventually.
Our client, I think there's two levels of client. I mean, really, the airline is our client because
Right.
you know that's who the contracts with. One of my mentors years ago, he says you can't have the customer and like the business as your client. Like only one of them is your real customer. Who is it? And I'm like, I don't know. How do you figure that? And he says, it's easy. You got two phones, one in each hand, and they're both ringing. One is an end customer, and one is the B2B customer. Which one are you going to answer? I said, well, I'll answer the B2B one because that's where all the money is.
Right,
there
right.
you go. That's your customer. So there you go. Airline's our customer. But you know, at the same time, we feel like we're doing a service to travelers of the world because airlines, they've been running StatusMatch promotions for at least 35, 40 years. In 1986 is the first one that we can find. Someone sent a fax into American Airlines. And so like, it's not a new thing, but they're not that great at it. And so we sort of bring this level of expertise with it. You know, how can you make it more interesting? One of the oldest, easiest, cheapest ways for airlines to acquire new customers is StatusMatch. It's by far the cheapest, right? And there's no corporate sales teams. It's none of that stuff. It's just give out status to the right people in the right way. And there's ways to do it well and ways not to do it well. And we've figured out a lot of that, turn into a bit of a machine. And so when we go to airlines, we say, hey, look, we've got a big checklist, actually. You should see it. It's really good. It's like, what about this? Do you want these kind of people? Do you want to avoid these kind of people? And when we launched this service at the end of 2020, a launch customer was Frontier Airlines, and it was a paid status match. And what it meant is the customer paid a fee to apply. It was a $49 fee to apply.
Right.
And I mean, that's obviously how our revenue model works there. And they paid to apply. And this was kind of genius at the time. There's a lot of really amazing PR that the airline got out of that. I remember one outlet said, this is charging the customer for a status match is very on brand for Frontier. And it went really, it did not detract from volume. There was many thousands of people that sort of went through that process and did it. And because people paid a fee, what happened is in their minds are like, if I'm paying $50 to do this, I'm going to use it. So people like, I'll show you, and they go out and fly the airline, right? It's like, hang on. So they're locking themselves, they're buying something, and then kind of like Amazon Prime, right? You pay a fee, and then where you going to shop? Right. Guess.
Very good point. Now, do you have any statistics how many people as an average maybe stay with another airline once they go through the status match? Or are they just going to try to get the status for a few months and fall back to their old routine, go back to the airlines they flew before?
This is a good question. I'll answer it in two ways. If you're an airline or a hotel, you're running a status match promotion, any customer you get through that is all incremental revenue, right? Because you're probably never going to get a cent from these people without running this promotion. So you're not going to see 100% of people that do a status match retain status on merit the following year or 3 months, like whatever it is, right? So you're never going to get to that level. But you also, that's not really the goal, because your goal is just to get some money in the door, and a percentage of those will convert and stay on. So, we've seen as high as within the first 90 days of taking a status match, this is a US carrier, 90 days taking a status through our platform, these people earned a mile in the program. So this is people booking and flying. Another very large Middle Eastern airline we work with has had some pretty compelling numbers. We've seen it's about 60% as well. People booking and flying, and like booking a new ticket and flying within, I think it's 60 or 90 days after getting a status match. Put in that my microphone's still there. Put it in comparison, prior to us existing, if you were to run a big status match campaign as an airline by yourselves, you'd be really lucky to get 10% of people that would go on to retain status on merit. So like, you get maybe 10, maybe slightly higher.
Right.
And that's it. That's if you did like a full year of status, not a trial, not like a 3-month trial. Those are less effective. And so you got a bunch of people that will go ahead and retain it next year on merit. great customers. You get a bunch of people that do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flights. They do enough, but like they try it, but not enough to keep the status that you gave them, right? So maybe you drop them down a level, something like that. And then you got a bunch of people that just do nothing at all.
So people who are really trying to keep the level, and if they're short like a few thousand miles, is there another status match after this, or that's it? You get it one time in your life.
Generally, we leave it up to the airlines in terms of how they want to approach it. Some say like, this is a one. I was reading Alaska today that theirs is a one-time deal. You do it once, and you've got that stamp on your forehead for life. You can't go back. We work with. We had a big one with Air Canada just over a year ago. They had a quite a large campaign. From memory, I think they said 2 or 3 years you couldn't do another one for. So really, it's up. There's no hard and fast rule. It's kind of up to the airline how they want to approach it. As a centralized sort of platform, because we run StatusMatch for a lot of airlines, right? We obviously see people status matching different places. Yeah. So we have a centralized database. So, we have the option to, if someone status matches from, Emirates over here, and then tomorrow they're trying to match into another partner we work with, we could block that obviously because people sort of chain matching around, and so we do a pretty extensive database of global travelers that have been doing that. But this I there's I think there's an opportunity for airlines and hotels here, and cruise lines, to be fair, anyone with the elite status game. I think it's one of the under monetized aspects of airline right now. You hear a lot about ancillary revenue, trying to sell people in the booking flow. And then when you're on board, trying to sell them stuff, buy on board and try and sell duty free, all kind of stuff, right? We've also heard about airlines selling points and miles and making billions of dollars out of it, right? And no one's really cottoned on to elite status, the thing that drives a lot of airline revenue. People have status, represent about 5% of the airline's loyalty members, but they actually drive about 30% of ticket sales to the airline, right? So as a group, they're pretty darn powerful, right? What about trying to monetize status a bit more? What about trying to sell status upsells? What about just selling status to people? I think there's a big untapped opportunity there.
Interesting. And you mentioned also hotel status. So you also match hotel status, or just airlines?
I think there's a work across. Sorry, big cough there. This would work across hotels as well. Absolutely. Hotels actually could do a lot more with status because they have less restrictions. Airlines, especially in a big alliance,
right?
They've got like Star Alliance, One World, SkyTeam. These guys put some controls and restrictions about what airlines can do with status and how they give it away and all this kind of stuff. Hotels, less limited like that. Just like airlines outside of the alliances are less restricted and they can do more, which to me, there's like dollar signs in my eyes here. Like you could do more, you could sell more, you can package it up, you can sell things to partners, you could. So big opportunity, I think.
On the hotel, let me ask you something. I don't know if this is something you guys have thought about or are already doing. What drives me wild with hotel, I'm probably a Hyatt guy because I'm a globalist with Hyatt now for the last God knows how many years. And sometimes I stay more than 100 nights a year in Hyatt. So if I spread it out, I could probably be a top on many systems. I'm also with Marriott, I'm up there with Platinum. But what drives me crazy is, and I don't do that, but let's say you attend a conference or you decide to book a package through Expedia. It doesn't make any difference what status you have and how many nights you stay in a hotel. You get nothing. There's no status. It looks like you never put your head into a pillow and you never entered this room. Why is this? Is there a system you guys are in where you say, okay, we're going to explain to Marriott or to Hyatt and match and allow these nights customers have spent to actually generate a status with you so they come back and stay more with you?
This is one of my pet peeves as well, actually. You go find a nice rate, an OTA, you book it, and then, sorry, sir, we don't recognize your diamond status here. It's like in the consumer's eyes, they don't care where they book. The hotel's making money. It's the
Right.
same, probably the same rate, you know, on the OTA or through the conference or direct, wherever it is, right? It's not the customer's fault that there's, you know, all these contracts in the background and commissions being paid and all sort. Like the customer doesn't care. It shouldn't be their problem either, right? I just know I paid my $1,000. I'm a gold member. Show me the money, right? So yeah, that's my pet peeves. Had that issue for a long time as well. I think there's an opportunity here for OTAs to kind of step up here, right? Because OTAs, by and large, have pretty underwhelming loyalty propositions, right? I think hotels.com was probably most interesting on their, you know, buy 10, get one free kind of deal. But outside that, they're all pretty boring, to be fair, I think. And, you know, what if sort of Expedia or someone came up and said, look, you know, if we know you're a gold member at these Marriott properties, the property may not honor you on it, but we're going to give you stuff. What about if they try to?
But you don't get the same stuff. You know, a gold member with Expedia is probably not as good as getting a suite upgrade in your hotel, you know, because you're a platinum member.
What if they? I don't have the answer here, but what if they tried something else? What if Expedia says, no, it's not Expedia Gold you get. We know you're Marriott, you're Bonvoy Gold, right? But we also know you're Diamond Hilton and you're Gold with Accor, and they know like there's 4 or 5 different statuses. You've probably got 10 different top status at hotels. But imagine if the OTA knew all of that, right? How much different should the hotel treat you if they knew that your ability to spend with that brand is actually a lot more than that one night that they think you're spending there, right? I think there's probably some money in the data intelligence behind that, in trying to woo you as a customer a little bit more, just to, you know, bring a little bit more of that share wallet to their brand versus another brand, you know, because when you check into that hotel, that Marriott property, they know your Marriott data, right? They know how many nights, how much value, but they've got no clue that you've spent 30 nights at the Holiday Inn next door in the last year, right? And they've missed out on 20 grand of bookings. They've got no idea. And I think that kind of thing, that kind of theme is where I think OTAs and other agents could really, you know, sort of step in and try and add some more value. I think there's an interesting play there. If someone can crack it.
Yeah, and of course, hotels don't want you to go to Expedia or hotels.com or anywhere else to book because, as you said, they have to pay commission. But what you're saying is interesting, and I agree with you. If you generate, let's say, a gold status with Expedia and all the hotels Expedia books, whether it's Hyatt, Marriott, and who knows, Accor, doesn't make any difference. You get the same status because you have the status with Expedia. You got something here. But of course, it would also make Expedia quite powerful if the same wasn't offered to American Express Travel or a smaller travel agency. How are you going to solve this? You know, from if you run a hotel, I think the honest thing for the hotel would be, and to not even worry about where the booking comes from, as long as the passenger arrives or a guest arrived, they should get their status honored, right? Don't you think so?
I totally agree. It's not a guest's fault, like where they book. You don't penalize someone, because you booked through an app instead of our website, and our website is horrible to use. So just ignore that. But you book through an app that you really like using, like booking.com or hotels.com, something like that, right? Something really nice and simple. You use that. So we're going to penalize you by not giving you any of the points that you came to. It's just a bit odd in my eyes to do that to a customer, especially someone that has the ability to spend a lot, you know, on an ongoing basis as well. So I understand why OTAs have more power.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's going to be interesting, and maybe you guys can push some people to think about what you just said. It's an interesting scenario. Now, you said something, I think you sent us a press release last week, and that was actually the reason for me to respond to you, about a tsunami you're expecting in status lost because of COVID. Can you explain this?
So it's not an actual tsunami. It's a
No,
virtual. I hear everyone panicking.
To get everyone's attention.
So loosely, the idea is this: if you've had elite status airline hotel in 2019, you probably still have that same status or higher today, right? You haven't dropped in status. All airlines extended status for free, hotels as well. And so you kept your gold status for the last nearly 3 years. Yeah. And, it had to be done. They had to extend that because a lot of people couldn't fly, right? They couldn't travel. And it makes no sense to try and force someone to go on a plane and 3 weeks of quarantine over here. Like, no one's doing that, right? So everyone kept the status. So what's happened is now most loyalty programs work on a calendar year basis, especially in North America. And we're in January now. And none of the airlines want to extend status for free anymore, right? So they've kind of said, well, guys, you've had a couple of years, you've had an easy ride. We've done the right thing by keeping you at this level. It's now your turn to go out there again, right? The world's open, it's safe. Start spending money, right? And so what's happening now is there's our estimations is about 1 million Americans due to be downgraded in status in the next few months. Wow. Right? Globally, somewhat, could be up to about 10 million people, but in USA specifically about 1 million airlines elite. Now this is a big number, right? Because these people, we're not talking people that just done zero activity, like canceled credit cards and not flown at all in 2.5 years. Like, we're not talking that. We're talking people that they used to be a United 1K, used to fly enough for that, but they're just not there. They're still flying, they're still got the credit card, they're still making the company money, but just not as much as they used to, right? So now they're like a silver level, for example, right? So they're still valuable. They're just not 1K anymore. Yeah. And so airlines are sort of getting ready to downgrade these people, and there's a huge group. And so when these people get downgraded, this is what we talk about, the tsunami. At that point, we actually sent out a survey to we sent it out to tens of thousands of top tier members in North America. We said, look, if your airline downgrades you, what are you going to do? Are you going to stop flying the airline? Are you going to keep flying? Are you going to keep spending with them? Are you going to keep the credit card? And we asked a bunch of questions. You can check out at statuscliff.com. There's a survey there. And 86% of people said that they would move some or all of their business away from that airline if they were downgraded, right? So these are people who haven't flown or haven't taken the right activity to keep their status, and it's their own problem, right? It's like it's their doing. It's not like the airline's taking it away. It's they haven't flown, right? And they're still saying, if you take it away, I'm not going to do any future business with you, right? And that's because for airlines last 2 years have been branding into people's brains, you're a valuable customer to us. You're one of our most important customers. Thank you for your loyalty of all this. Thank you. You're the best. You're the best. You're the best. And now they're saying you're not the best anymore. You're just a silver now. That's kind of the message. And when these people get downgraded, we're seeing it's about just over 86% of people saying they're going to move some or all of the business to a new airline, which in our eyes represents a bit of an opportunity for other airlines to pick up those customers through obviously a status match, right? So you got 1 million people about to be downgraded, and especially like low cost airlines, right? Imagine they come up. Imagine a low cost airline tomorrow launched a big status match campaign and said, "Hey, is your airline downgrading your status? Come here, we'll match you. Just give us a try." You may not have thought about flying a low cost airline before, but now that your other airline doesn't love you anymore, you can come try us.
I know, and it's really an interesting story, and thank you, Mark, so much for being on the show. I think people really enjoy this. Maybe we should definitely have you back and see how this all develops. Because now it's pretty much the time. It's January, and I know most of the statuses they go to like February or March from the year before, and I have to say I was 1 night short on my platinum status with Marriott. I give plenty of nights to Hyatt, so now I'm going to probably be a gold after this. So does it mean I would never go with Marriott? I probably won't. I probably won't stay at Marriott next year. Forget it. And people, you never know how people think. But maybe Marriott comes along and said, look, I mean, you've been a loyal customer now for so many years, and we're going to keep your status now this year. You know, that would be a good thing to do. But let's see how airlines and how hotels react. We don't know. But just to understand, if someone wanted to get a status match, can they go and contact you or go to your website?
Yeah, if you have status with Airline Hotel, just go to statusmatch.com. It's free to register. You can check out what we've got, what we don't have. It's good to register. He does that because when there's future opportunities that come up that sometimes you don't know about, we alert you straight away if you qualify for it, which is great. Obviously, if you work for an airline, contact me as well. Love to do business.
Yeah. So we do this, statusmatch.com. And thank you very much. You enjoy Malaysia. Happy New Year. And let's see how this year turns out. It looks like it's going to be exciting for your business.
Let's hope so. Thanks for a great chat.
Thank you very much. And everyone else, if you missed the beginning of the show, and you can just stay tuned, and we're going to show it again all day. And then later on, you can watch us, of course, on YouTube, or go to breakingnewsshow.com. And you can see our show also on eturbonews.com, aviation.travel, meetings.travel, and wherever you find us. Aloha from Hawaii, and thank you, Mark, again for joining us, and we see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.